Marcus Stone stood in the center of the great circular chamber, his hands bound by glowing energy cuffs. Above him, 12 alien faces looked down from their elevated seats, their expressions ranging from disgust to false pity. The Galactic Council's main chamber was designed to make anyone standing in it feel small. Today, they failed. The head counselor, a tall blue-skinned being, rose from his seat. His voice echoed through the chamber. Marcus Stone of Earth, you stand accused of endangering galactic stability through your actions. How do you plead? Marcus lifted his chin, meeting the alien's 4 eyes without flinching. If exposing your corrupt terraforming practices counts as endangering stability, then I'm guilty. Those protocols you approved would have killed millions. A murmur ran through the chamber. The head counselor's skin darkened to a deeper blue, a sign of anger among his kind. You overstepped your authority. As a terraforming engineer, your job was to implement our protocols, not question them. My job was to make planets livable. Marcus shot back. Your new protocols would have created unstable atmospheres. Those colonies would have suffocated within a year. Someone had to speak up. The second counselor, a being that looked like a praying mantis, clicked its mandibles. The human shows no remorse. The traditional punishment for such actions is death. Marcus didn't move. He'd known the risks when he sent out the evidence to every news network in the galaxy. The Council's terraforming protocols had been cutting corners, rushing the process to claim more planets quickly. The proof was in their own data. Data they thought no one would bother to check carefully. The head counselor raised his hand for silence. However, in light of humanity's recent addition to the Galactic Council, we will show mercy. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of smug satisfaction. Instead of execution, you will be exiled to Duna V. The chamber erupted in whispers. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. Duna V was infamous, a desert planet where daytime temperatures soared high enough to melt lead. No one had ever survived there for more than a few days. This is not mercy, Marcus said quietly. It's just a slower death. You will be provided with a standard survival pod and 1 week's worth of supplies. The head counselor continued, ignoring his comment. What you do with them is your choice. The council considers this sentence more than fair, given your crimes. Marcus looked around the chamber, seeing the satisfied faces of the council members. They thought they were being clever, avoiding the political backlash of executing a human while ensuring he would die anyway. They had no idea what humans were capable of. I accept the sentence, Marcus said firmly. The council members blinked in surprise. They had expected him to beg for a different punishment. But remember this, humans have survived every hellhole you've thrown at us. We survived our own planet trying to kill us. We survived first contact when half the galaxy wanted us dead. And I'll survived Duna V. The head counselor waved his hand dismissively. Take him to the transport ship. The sentence will be carried out immediately. As the guards led him away, Marcus caught fragments of the council members' conversations. They were already betting on how long he would last. The longest estimate was 3 days. He allowed himself a small smile. They had made 3 crucial mistakes. First, they assumed the planet would kill him quickly. Second, they gave him a survival pod and supplies, tools he could work with. And third, most importantly, they had forgotten that humans were born on a death world, evolved to endure conditions that would kill most species in the galaxy. The transport ship waited in the docking bay, its metal hull gleaming under the artificial lights. As they secured him in the passenger compartment, Marcus began running calculations in his head. He had studied Duna V during his training. Everyone in the terraforming court had. The council thought they were sending him to die. They were about to learn why humans had earned their place among the stars. The drop pod slammed into Duna V's surface with enough force to crack stone. Inside, Marcus gripped his harness tightly, his teeth rattling from the impact. The council hadn't bothered with a gentle landing sequence. They hadn't expected him to survive anyway. As the dust settled outside, the pod's sensors began displaying the external conditions. Temperature, 62 degrees Celsius in the shade. Wind speed, 80 kilometers per hour. Humidity, virtually zero. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. Hot, but not impossible. Let's see what you gave me to work with, he muttered, checking the survival supplies. 1 week's worth of water, basic rations, a simple shelter kit, and a manual distress beacon. The council had followed the letter of the law, providing standard survival equipment, but nothing more. Marcus pulled on the environmental suit from the pod storage. It wasn't great, but it would help him survive the first few hours. The suit's cooling system whirred to life as he sealed the helmet. Time to disappoint some council members, he said, hitting the pod's door release. Hot wind blasted into the pod, carrying stinging red sand. The landscape outside was a sea of dunes stretching to the horizon, broken only by jutting black rocks. 2 suns blazed in the purple sky, one red, one white. Marcus checked his wrist computer. The pod's impact had cracked its water tank, leaving him with only 3 days of water instead of 7. He shook his head. Not an accident, I bet. But the council had forgotten something important about humans. They were engineers before they were warriors. Before they built starships, they had to solve problems just to survive on Earth. Marcus looked at the pod with a critical eye. The metal hull could be stripped and shaped. The power cells were still good. The computer systems could be repurposed. Working quickly in the brutal heat, Marcus began dismantling the pod. He set up the shelter first, angling it to catch the wind while blocking the worst of the sand. Next, he stripped the pod's cooling system, designed for space, and modified it to work in atmosphere. Sweat soaked his clothes inside the suit, but that gave him an idea. Humans were one of the few species that cooled themselves through sweating. If he could capture and recycle that moisture. Hours passed as Marcus worked. He turned the pod's hull into a series of reflecting panels, creating shade while channeling the hot wind. The cooling system, combined with parts from the distress beacon, became a moisture trap. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. By the time the white sun set, leaving only the dimmer red one in the sky, Marcus had created a survival system that would make any engineer proud. The temperature dropped rapidly, another challenge, but one he'd prepared for. The pod's insulation now lined his shelter, and its power cells provided heat. That night, as he lay in his shelter listening to the wind, Marcus counted his victories. He had water recycling, shelter, and power. The council's monitoring satellites would show he was still alive, still fighting. He imagined their reactions and grinned. His wrist computer beeped, movement detected nearby. Probably just shifting sand. But there it was again. Something was out there, moving against the wind. Marcus checked his makeshift sensors. The readings didn't make sense. They showed complex organic patterns, but nothing could survive out there unprotected. Unless the council was wrong about Duna V being uninhabited. The sound came again, closer now. Marcus grabbed his tools, they could be weapons if needed, and moved to the shelter's entrance. The red sun cast long shadows across the dunes, and in one of them, something moved. He was about to discover that surviving the planet's harsh conditions was only the first of Duna V's surprises. Marcus held his breath as the shadow moved closer. His hands tightened on the metal bar he'd fashioned into a weapon, but he hoped he wouldn't need it. The red sun cast an eerie glow across the dunes, making it hard to judge distance and size. Then he saw her. She emerged from behind a dune like a desert spirit, tall and graceful. Her skin was pale gold, seeming to shimmer in the red sunlight. Large, almond-shaped eyes studied him with equal curiosity. She wore close-fitting clothes that seemed to shift color with the sand, and some kind of thin membrane covered her face, probably for breathing in the harsh atmosphere. What struck Marcus most was that she moved through the deadly desert heat without any environmental suit. "You're not dying," she said in perfect galactic standard, her head tilted slightly. "The council said humans couldn't survive here. Yet you build and adapt. Interesting. Marcus slowly lowered his makeshift weapon. You've been watching me. Since you landed. She gestured at his jury-rigged survival systems. Your solutions are different from what we expected. I'm Lisa. Marcus Stone. He paused. The council thinks your people are extinct. Lisa's laugh was like wind chimes. The council thinks many things. They're usually wrong. She moved closer, examining his water recycling system. You captured moisture from your own sweat. Clever. Inefficient, but clever. I work with what I have, Marcus said. Though I'm guessing you have better methods, since you're walking around in this heat like it's a pleasant spring day. We adapted to Duna V thousands of years ago. Lisa touched the membrane over her face. This filter lets us extract moisture from the air. Your method is more creative. A gust of wind threw sand against the shelter. Lisa didn't even blink as it swirled around her. The council sent you here to die, she said. It wasn't a question. They didn't like that I exposed their corrupt terraforming practices. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. They thought the planet would kill me within days. Yet you survived. Lisa's eyes seemed to glow in the red sunlight. Like we did, when they tried to drive us away centuries ago. They wanted our water technology, you see. When we refused to share it, they declared our planet uninhabitable and our species extinct. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. So you went underground. We adapted. We survived. We thrived. Lisa moved to the shelter's entrance. Would you like to see how? Marcus looked at his makeshift camp. Everything he built was focused on survival, but it was just barely keeping him alive. And now this woman who could walk through the deadly heat unprotected was offering. What exactly? Why trust me? He asked. The council sent me here. Because you did what we did. You defied them. You exposed their corruption. And, she smiled, you're the first outsider who tried to work with the desert instead of fighting it. A sound like distant thunder rolled across the dunes. Lisa turned toward it. That's a sandstorm coming. A big one. Your shelter won't survive it. She held out her hand. Come with me, Marcus Stone. See what the council tried to destroy. Marcus looked at the approaching wall of red sand, then at his failing equipment. The choice was clear. He grabbed his few essential tools and took her hand. Your people, are they all like you? He asked as they started walking. Lisa's laughter carried over the rising wind. No, some of us are quite strange, even by our standards. My sister Maya, for instance. Well, you'll see. As they disappeared into the desert haze, a council monitoring satellite passed silently overhead, its cameras recording the impossible. A human not just surviving on Duna V, but making contact with a species that wasn't supposed to exist. The council's perfect plan was about to become very, very complicated. Lisa led Marcus through the sandstorm as if it wasn't there. Her hand gripped his firmly, guiding him between dunes that would have been invisible in the swirling red clouds. After 20 minutes of walking, they stopped at what looked like an ordinary rock formation. Lisa pressed her palm against the stone, and a hidden door slid open. Welcome, she said, to the real Duna V. They stepped into a tunnel that spiraled down into the planet's depths. The temperature dropped immediately, and the air became easier to breathe. Crystal formations in the walls gave off a soft blue light. The crystals are bioluminescent, Lisa explained, seeing Marcus's fascination. They also help purify the air. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern that took Marcus's breath away. An entire city spread out below them, built in terraces along the cave walls. Water flowed in transparent tubes throughout the structure, glowing with the same blue light as the crystals. Gardens flourished in spiral patterns, growing plants he'd never seen before. This is impossible, Marcus whispered. The council's scans never detected any of this. The crystals mask our energy signatures, a new voice said. Among other things, a woman who looked similar to Lisa stepped out of a nearby doorway. She was slightly taller, with darker gold skin and eyes that seemed to shift color like desert mirages. "Marcus, this is my sister Maya," Lisa said. "She leads our city's defense council." Maya circled Marcus slowly, studying him. "So this is the human who made the council angry enough to exile him here." She smiled. "Good. We've been waiting for someone like you." Before Marcus could ask what that meant, Maya waved them forward. They followed her through the city, and Marcus saw more of the Dunan people. They all moved with the same fluid grace as the sisters, their skin ranging from pale to deep gold. They entered a large chamber filled with complex machinery. At its center, a holographic display showed water flowing through the planet's underground systems. "This is our heart," Maya explained. "We don't just survive here. We control the planet's water. Every drop, from the deepest aquifer to the moisture in the air above, we can track and manipulate." The technology the council wanted, Marcus realized. This is why they tried to drive you out. They wanted to weaponize it, Lisa said quietly. Water control means life control. They would have used it to force other worlds to submit to their authority. Maya touched the hologram, and it shifted to show the planet's surface. "We've watched you since you landed, Marcus. Your approach to survival was enlightening. You worked with our environment instead of trying to overpower it." "I'm a terraforming engineer," Marcus said. "Was anyway. My job was to make hostile environments livable, not to destroy them." "Exactly." Maya smiled. "Which is why we need your help. The Council's satellites are becoming more sophisticated. Eventually, they'll develop sensors that can penetrate our crystal shielding. We need to find a new way to hide," Lisa added. Or find a way to make them stop looking," Marcus finished. His engineer's mind was already racing with possibilities. "Your water control system. Could it be modified to create permanent storms around specific areas?" The sisters exchanged looks. "It could," Maya said slowly. "But the energy cost. What if you combined it with thermal masking?" Marcus walked to the hologram. "Look, if you use the temperature difference between the surface and the aquifers." A soft chime interrupted them. One of the displays turned red. "Council ships," Maya said grimly. "3 of them, entering orbit. It seems they're not content to just wait for you to die, Marcus." "They must have detected something when I brought you here," Lisa said. "I'm sorry." Marcus looked at the city around them, at all they had built and protected. "Don't be. Maybe it's time the council learned they're not as powerful as they think they are." Maya's eyes glittered. "Now that," she said, "sounds like a plan worth discussing." For 3 days, Marcus worked with the Dunans in their underground labs. The council ships still circled overhead, but the crystal shields held firm. In those 3 days, he learned more about water management than he had in years of terraforming training. "Your people think too much about controlling nature," Lisa said as they worked on improving the shield generators. Her fingers danced over the crystal controls, making adjustments. "We learned to work with it instead." Marcus watched her work, fascinated by how the water responded to her touch. "The council's way is all about power. Quick results, no matter the cost." He paused. "That's why I had to stop them. Their new protocols would have poisoned dozens of worlds." Lisa looked at him, her golden eyes soft in the crystal light. "You gave up everything to save strangers on distant planets." "It was the right thing to do." Marcus shrugged, then smiled. "Besides, getting exiled here wasn't exactly a punishment, even if it was meant to be." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. But before either could speak, Maya burst into the lab. "The council ships are launching probes," she announced. "They're using new scanning technology, something we haven't seen before." Marcus quickly pulled up the surface scans. "They're not just looking for me anymore. These are deep penetrating geological surveys." "They suspect we're here," Lisa said, her voice tight with worry. "The crystal shields won't hold against these scanners for long," Maya finished. "We need to move faster." Marcus studied the data streams. Wait, look at this. He pointed to a pattern in the water flow diagrams. Your control systems don't just move water. They can change its molecular structure. Lisa leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. Yes, but how does that help? Because, Marcus said, excitement building in his voice, if we can change how water molecules react to their scanners, we can make ourselves invisible even without the crystal shields, Maya realized. But the calculations required. I can help with that. Marcus was already typing. Terraforming requires understanding molecular changes on a planetary scale. If we combine that with your water control. As they worked, more Dunnans gathered to watch. Marcus noticed how they whispered among themselves, pointing at how easily he worked with their technology. He caught fragments of their conversations, about change, about surface contact, about the future. Hours passed as they refined the system. Lisa barely left Marcus's side, their hands often touching as they worked the controls together. Maya noticed but said nothing, though her expression was thoughtful. There's something else, Lisa said quietly when the others had left for the night. The council, they're not just looking for us now. They're afraid. Afraid. Marcus looked up from his calculations. Afraid of what you represent, Maya said, stepping out of the shadows. A human who survived their death sentence, who found us, who works with our technology as if born to it. She smiled slightly. Who grows closer to us each day. Marcus felt Lisa's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently. The council's power comes from keeping species separate, controlled, Maya continued. But you, Marcus, you show that cooperation is possible. That different species can work together, learn from each other. Even, she glanced at Marcus and Lisa's joined hands, care for each other. The lab's crystals pulsed with a warning light. Above them, the council ships were moving into new positions. They're getting ready to act. Maya said grimly, whatever we're going to do, we need to do it soon. Marcus looked at the city around them, at Lisa beside him, at all they had built together in just 3 days. He thought about the council's corruption, about their fear of change and cooperation. Then let's show them, he said firmly, exactly what humans and Dunnans can do together. In the distance, the warning crystals continued to pulse, counting down to the coming confrontation. Red warning lights flashed throughout the underground city. The council ships had launched their ground assault, sending heavily armed shuttles through Duna V's atmosphere. Marcus watched their descent on the holographic display, Lisa and Maya at his side. They're targeting my old survival camp, Marcus said, pointing to the deployment pattern. They think we're hiding near there. Maya's eyes narrowed. Good. That gives us time to execute our plan. She turned to the gathered Dunan engineers. Begin the water defense protocol. Throughout the city, ancient machinery hummed to life. The transparent water tubes began to pulse with energy, their usual blue glow turning to brilliant white. Marcus felt the vibrations through the floor, the power of an entire planet's water system coming under direct control. The molecular restructuring is ready, Lisa reported, her hands dancing over the crystal controls. Marcus's modifications are holding stable. Marcus checked his own readings. By combining his terraforming knowledge with Dunan water technology, they had found a way to turn the planet's moisture into both a weapon and a shield. The council wouldn't know what hit them. Council ground forces are spreading out from the landing zone, Maya announced. 5 minutes until they reach scanning range of the city. Marcus took a deep breath. Now or never. He looked at Lisa. Ready? She took his hand, squeezing it once. Together. Marcus pressed his palm to the main control crystal, Lisa's hand over his. Their combined command sent power surging through the water systems. Above them, the desert air began to change. The council forces saw it first, a wall of swirling water vapor rising from the sand like a living thing. Their scanners went crazy, unable to penetrate the molecular altered moisture. Then the real storm began. Water erupted from hidden reservoirs beneath the dunes, flash freezing and thawing in microseconds, creating explosive bursts of steam and ice. The Council troops found their high-tech weapons shorting out, their environmental suits malfunctioning as specially modified water molecules invaded their systems. "They're pulling back to their shuttles," Maya reported with satisfaction. "Their equipment can't handle the water changes." But victory celebrations came too soon. One of the Council ships in orbit fired something new, massive pods that crashed into the desert floor. "Energy readings are off the charts," Lisa warned. "They're using some kind of atmospheric processors." The pods activated, sending out waves of energy that began to tear moisture from the air. The Council was trying to destroy their water defense by brute force. Marcus watched in horror as their carefully crafted water shield began to fail. "They're going to find the city." "Not if I can help it." Lisa's voice was steel. She pressed her hands to the crystal controls, her skin beginning to glow with an inner light. "Maya, give me full access to the deep aquifers." "Lisa, no," Maya protested. "The pressure at that depth, no one can control that much water at once." "She won't be doing it alone," Marcus said firmly, placing his hands next to Lisa's. "Remember what you said about humans and Dunans working together." Maya hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. "Full access granted. All water control systems responding to your combined input." Power surged through Marcus's body like lightning. He felt Lisa's consciousness merge with his through the crystal interface, their combined understanding of water control and planetary engineering becoming something entirely new. The ground began to shake. Deep beneath the desert, billions of tons of pressurized water responded to their command. The Council forces were about to learn why you don't threaten a planet that had two water-controlling civilizations working as one. "Together," Lisa whispered, her eyes glowing like twin suns. "Together," Marcus answered as the power built to its peak. "Let's show them what we can do." The desert exploded. The desert's fury lasted for 10 minutes. When it finally subsided, the Council's ground forces were gone, their shuttles thrown back into orbit by geysers of super-pressurized water. The atmospheric processor pods lay broken in the sand, crushed by the planet's unleashed power. Marcus and Lisa stood at the crystal controls, their hands still joined, both breathing hard from the effort. Around them, the Dunan city hummed with residual energy from their combined display of power. "The Council ships are pulling back," Maya announced, watching the orbital displays. "They're retreating to the outer system." She turned to Marcus and Lisa with newfound respect. "What you two just did, it's unprecedented. No one has ever merged human and Dunan abilities like that before." "The Council will be back," Marcus said, still holding Lisa's hand. "They won't let this go easily." "Let them come," Lisa replied with a fierce smile. "We're stronger together than they could ever imagine." The main communication crystal suddenly lit up with an incoming transmission. The Council's head counselor appeared in holographic form, his blue skin dark with anger. "This is impossible," he sputtered. "The Dunans were extinct. And you," he pointed at Marcus, "you were meant to die in the desert." "Sorry to disappoint," Marcus said calmly, "though I'm not surprised you failed. You never did understand what humans or Dunans are truly capable of." Maya stepped forward. "Your forces have been defeated, Counselor. Your secret attack on our world has been recorded and will be broadcast to every species in the galaxy. How will you explain attacking an extinct civilization?" The Counselor's face twisted. "You dare threaten the Council?" "No," Lisa said firmly. "We're offering you a choice. Leave us in peace, acknowledge our existence and sovereignty, and we'll keep the extent of your corruption quiet. Continue to threaten us." She gestured at the destroyed Council equipment visible on the surface scans. "Well, you've seen what we can do." The Counselor looked ready to argue, but Marcus could see the calculation in his 4 eyes. The Council's reputation would be ruined if the truth got out. Their attempted genocide of the Dunans, their corrupt terraforming practices, their failed execution by exile of a whistleblower. The Council will "Consider your terms," he said stiffly, and the transmission cut off. "They'll agree," Maya said confidently. "They have no choice. Their power depends on appearing lawful and wise. This incident proves they're neither." Throughout the city, celebrations were beginning. Dunans came out of their homes, their skin glowing with joy as they realized their centuries of hiding were finally over. Marcus watched them with a mix of happiness and uncertainty. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Lisa turned to him, her golden eyes soft. "That depends. Will you stay? Help us rebuild? There's so much we could accomplish together." Marcus looked around at the city that had become his home, at the people who had taken him in when the council tried to kill him, at Lisa, who had shown him a whole new way of seeing the universe. "The council exiled me here to die," he said slowly. "Instead, I found a new home, a way to fight corruption." And he squeezed Lisa's hand, someone worth fighting for. Maya cleared her throat. "Well, as head of the Defense Council, I suppose I should officially welcome the first human citizen of Dunavi," she smiled. "Assuming you accept." Marcus's answer was to pull Lisa close and kiss her, their skin glowing with shared joy. Around them, the crystal lights pulsed in harmony with their happiness, and the water systems hummed with the promise of a future where humans and Dunans would work together openly at last. The council had sent him here to die alone in the desert. Instead, Marcus Stone had found a family, a purpose, and a love that would change the galaxy. Not bad for an exiled engineer who refused to die.